1999 was absolutely brutal for Hollywood studios. While everyone remembers The Matrix and The Sixth Sense, they forget that studios lost an estimated $700 million on bombs that same year. I've got Will Smith here, turning down Neo to make one of these disasters. I've got Robin Williams bombing twice in the same calendar year. And there's one movie so catastrophic that its star briefly retired from acting in disgust. Which one lost the most money? It's not the one you'd expect. Let's find out. Freddie Prinze Jr. was riding high after She's All That became a surprise January hit. Fox saw dollar signs and rushed Wing Commander into theaters with barely a month of preparation. They'd originally planned to dump this video game adaptation straight to video. The budget was around $27 to $30 million. Not massive, but Fox only held a 15% equity stake, meaning they had about $4 million on the line. Break even should have been easy. It made $11.6 million. Domestically. That's it. The film earned one of cinema's rarest audience grades, a CinemaScore D. Here's the thing though, many audience members bought tickets solely because Fox attached the first Phantom Menace trailer to Prince. They watched the trailer and walked out before Wing Commander even started. Prince has been brutally honest about what happened. He read the script and loved it. So did Matthew Lillard. Then they arrived on location and got handed a completely different script. His exact words, "It was a piece of shit." Director Chris Roberts, who created the video game franchise, admitted his inexperience destroyed the project. He never directed another film. He did go on to create Star Citizen, which has raised over $700 million in crowdfunding. MGM looked at the success of 70s TV revivals and thought they'd found easy money. The Mod Squad seemed like a safe bet. 3 young stars, Claire Danes, Omar Epps, Giovanni Ribisi, an action premise. The budget was $21 million, though some sources claim $50 million including marketing. Either way, Break Even needed at least $50 million worldwide given standard distribution splits. It made $15.4 million total. Opening weekend landed at a dismal number that had executives panicking immediately. But the real story is the reviews. 3% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's not a typo. 3%. The worst reviewed film on this entire list. The original director departed over creative differences. She wanted gritty realism. MGM wanted hip and cool. They got neither. Time magazine called it the first and worst of the 70s cop show revival trend. Lawrence Van Gelder of the New York Times said the exit signs were welcome beacons. MGM's first quarter was catastrophic. The Mod Squad, The Rage, Carrie 2, and At First Sight Together triggered a $54 million write-down. Claire Danes' film career stalled for years until Homeland resurrected her. This one killed the TV adaptation trend before it even got started. You'd think Susan Sarandon and a 17-year-old Natalie Portman could sell a mother-daughter drama. Director Wayne Wang had indie credibility. Fox 2000 positioned Anywhere But Here as an awards contender. The reviews were actually solid, 63% on Rotten Tomatoes. None of it mattered. The budget was $23 million. It made $23.6 million worldwide. That sounds like Break even until you remember theaters keep half. Fox saw maybe $12 million back. Marketing costs weren't even covered. Here's where it gets interesting though. This project had been stuck in development for nearly a decade. Disney originally optioned the novel in the late 1980s as a Meryl Streep vehicle. Streep chose Postcards from the Edge instead. The release date kept shifting. Spring to September to October to November. Opening against Pokémon the first movie and Kevin Smith's Dogma was the final nail. Portman refused to do certain scenes, and Sarandon made Portman's casting a condition of her own participation. The talent was there. The timing was impossible. Sometimes good movies just get buried. Johnny Depp was between Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and Sleepy Hollow. Charlize Theron was a rising star. New Line Cinema gave first-time director Rand Ravitch $33 million to make The Astronaut's Wife, a thriller about an astronaut who returns from space, changed. You'd think that cast could open anything. Break Even needed around $80 million given marketing costs. It made $19.6 million worldwide. New Line didn't screen it for critics. They dumped it in late August and hoped nobody would notice. The CinemaScore was a D. That's audiences actively warning each other to stay away. Critics who caught it called the pacing glacial, a Rosemary's Baby knockoff without the craft. The marketing department made a fatal error. They gave away the entire plot in the trailer. Every twist, every reveal. Audiences knew exactly what would happen before buying tickets. Ravitch never directed another major film. Theron recovered. Depp moved on to Sleepy Hollow. This one just vanished, exactly like New Line wanted. Anthony Hopkins had won an Oscar for Silence of the Lambs. Cuba Gooding Jr. had won for Jerry Maguire. Disney paired them in Instinct, a drama about an anthropologist imprisoned for taking the lives of park rangers while living among gorillas. The pitch sounded prestige. Budget estimates range from $55 to $80 million depending on the source. Let's call it $65 million. Break-even needed at least $150 million. It made $36.7 million worldwide, almost nothing internationally. Roger Ebert destroyed it. He gave it 1.5 out of 4 stars and called it a greatest hits collection of better movies. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Gorillas in the Mist, The Silence of the Lambs, everything recycled. Nothing original. Here's the insider detail that makes this interesting. Instinct was the very first film produced by Spyglass Entertainment. Their next production? The Sixth Sense. Disney had structured the Spyglass deal to limit their downside exposure. It worked perfectly for Instinct. Disney was protected from the losses. But when The Sixth Sense became a phenomenon, Disney missed most of the upside. Author Daniel Quinn publicly disowned the film. His novel Ishmael inspired the screenplay, but the studio wanted action instead of philosophy. That's what bombed. Kevin Costner and director Sam Raimi teaming up for a baseball drama should have been a home run. For Love of the Game had Costner as an aging Detroit Tigers pitcher throwing what could be a perfect game. Universal gave them $50 million. Some sources say $80 million. It made $46.1 million worldwide. The domestic take was just $35 million. Baseball doesn't travel internationally. Universal learned that the hard way. But here's where it gets messy. Costner and Universal went to war publicly. The MPAA gave the film an R rating. Raimi and Universal agreed to cut it to PG-13. Costner wanted the R-rated version released. Universal co-chair Stacey Snider said it directly. Kevin's not the director, and it's not fair for him to hijack a $50 million asset. The studio offered Costner a $20 million check as a peace offering. He turned it down. Then, he refused to do promotional appearances, canceled the talk show circuit, told reporters he'd never forgive what they'd done. The public feud killed any chance the movie had. For Love of the Game was part of Universal's disastrous quarter alongside Mystery Men and Dudley Do Right. Costner had waived his usual $20 million salary for back-end percentage. That bet paid nothing. There's a quiet cult following now. Detroit Tigers pitcher Spencer Turnbull said he watched it before throwing his 2021 no-hitter. Robin Williams had already bombed once in 1999 with Bicentennial Man. Then came Jakob the Liar, and somehow it was worse. Williams plays a Jewish shopkeeper in a Nazi-occupied Polish ghetto who fabricates optimistic news reports to sustain hope. Sony gave it $45 million. It made under $5 million total. One of the worst returns on investment of any major studio release that year. Opening weekend landed at number 8 with just $2.1 million in 1,200 theaters. You won't believe what killed this movie. Timing. Jakob the Liar was actually filmed before Roberto Benigni's Life is Beautiful premiered. But Life is Beautiful reached American audiences first, won 3 Oscars, and completely owned the Holocaust dramedy space. By the time Jakob arrived, audiences felt like they'd already seen it. Roger Ebert attended the Toronto Film Festival screening. His observation was brutal. Williams got more applause for walking onto the stage than the entire movie received afterward. Empire magazine called it as turgid a film about mass termination as we are ever likely to see. Williams won the Stinker's Bad Movie Award for Worst Actor. Not for one film, for both Jakob the Liar and Bicentennial Man combined. 2 bombs in 1 year from one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. He later made fun of both in his stand-up. Dudley Do Right. Brendan Fraser had turned George of the Jungle into a surprise $100 million hit in 1997. Universal figured lightning could strike twice with another Jay Ward cartoon adaptation. They gave Dudley Do Right $22 million. The film made $10 million domestically. That's it. Universal didn't even bother with international theatrical. They dumped it straight to video overseas. Here's what went wrong. Universal had planned to tie the release to the opening of the Dudley Do Right's Ripsaw Falls ride at Islands of Adventure. The ride opened in May. The movie got pushed to late August. The synergy window closed. The advertising was desperate. The tagline literally said, "From the creator of George of the Jungle and the star of George of the Jungle and the acclaimed director who saw George of the Jungle." When your marketing strategy is reminding people of a better movie, you've already lost. Opening at number 11 with $3 million told Universal everything they needed to know. Director Hugh Wilson had made The First Wives Club and the original Police Academy. After Dudley Do Right, he never directed another studio picture. This film, combined with Rocky and Bullwinkle the following year, killed the entire J. Ward live-action pipeline. The 13th Warrior. This is the big one. The 13th Warrior is the single most financially devastating film of 1999 and possibly the entire decade. Antonio Banderas stars as a 10th century Arab poet who joins Norse warriors to battle a mysterious evil. Director John McTiernan had made Die Hard and Predator. The budget is one of cinema's most disputed figures. Reports range from $85 million to $160 million. The truth is probably around $100 million for production, with total costs pushing past $130 million. Break-even needed at least $250 million. It made $61.7 million worldwide, $32 million domestic. Disney's studio division posted an $84 million quarterly loss in the wake of this disaster. The production was a nightmare. McTiernan's original cut tested catastrophically with audiences. Too long, too many subplots, no narrative momentum. Michael Crichton, who wrote the source novel, took over and directed uncredited reshoots. The original score was thrown out entirely. The title changed from Eaters of the Dead. Omar Sharif had a small role in the film. His reaction became legendary. He said he looked at himself afterward and decided to stop making these meal ticket movies. He called it humiliating. He briefly retired from acting. An Oscar winner walked away from Hollywood because of this experience. Studio chief Joe Roth was pushed out shortly after. The estimated loss sits between $100 and $129 million. And yet, The 13th Warrior has achieved genuine cult classic status. The audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 66%, way higher than critics. Sometimes the audience knows something the box office doesn't. Here's one that was genuinely ahead of its time. Mystery Men is a superhero parody about wannabe heroes with laughable powers. Mr. Furious gets angry. The shoveler shovels well. The Blue Raja throws forks. In 1999, audiences had no framework for this. Universal spent $68 million on production and at least $30 million on domestic marketing. Break-even needed around $170 million. It made $33.5 million worldwide. Just $3.7 million came from international markets. Universal completely dumped it overseas. The cast was stacked: Ben Stiller, Hank Azaria, William H. Macy, Janine Garofalo, Jeffrey Rush, Greg Kinnear, Paul Rubens. Director Kinka Usher had made famous commercials including Got Milk and the Taco Bell Chihuahua. His feature debut overwhelmed him. Hank Azaria recalled the set in 2023. Ego-driven actors in ridiculous costumes arguing over whose funny bits would make the cut. Usher told everyone he was going back to commercials when it was done. He never directed another feature. Opening the same weekend as The Sixth Sense sealed the fate. Mystery Men got a C+ cinema score. That's toxic for comedies. Second weekend dropped 53%. But wait, you know Smash Mouth's All-Star? That song was written for the Mystery Men soundtrack. It became iconic 2 years later when Shrek used it. Mystery Men is now considered prophetic of the superhero parody genre. The Boys, Kick-Ass, Deadpool. Sometimes being a decade early is the same as being wrong. Robin Williams reuniting with Chris Columbus after Mrs. Doubtfire made $441 million should have been a guaranteed hit. Bicentennial Man, based on an Isaac Asimov story about a robot seeking humanity over 200 years, cost $100 million. It made $87.4 million worldwide. Opening weekend landed at number 5 with just $8.2 million, behind holdover Stuart Little. The math doesn't work when you factor in marketing. Estimated loss sits around $80 to $90 million. Disney initially pulled the plug in November 1998 over budget concerns. An unusual co-financing deal with Sony saved the production, but the film was rushed. Production began 1 week after the deal closed. They were racing to make a December 1999 release. Here's the real problem. Disney marketed it as a comedy. The actual film was a contemplative 2-hour philosophical drama spanning centuries. That disconnect was fatal. Roger Ebert gave it 2 out of 4 stars and said it sank into greeting card sentiment. Williams later joked about it in his stand-up. "You have to make fun of Bicentennial Man," he said. He stood by Popeye, though. The 1999 Stinkers Award went to Williams for Worst Actor, combining this with Jakob the Liar. $200 million in combined budgets. 2 massive bombs. There's been some reappraisal since Williams passed in 2014. The film's exploration of artificial intelligence feels ahead of its time now. It's still not on Disney Plus, though. Matthew Broderick as Inspector Gadget. Rupert Everett as Dr. Claw. Disney spent somewhere between $75 and $90 million on this live-action adaptation. It actually made money at the box office, $134 million worldwide. But here's the thing. Theaters keep roughly half. Disney saw about $67 million back against a budget pushing $90 million plus marketing. Estimated loss, around $30 million. A hit at the box office can still be a bomb on the balance sheet. The original cut ran 110 minutes. Disney slashed it to 78 minutes for theatrical release. The pacing became disjointed. Critical response was savage, 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. Fans of the cartoon felt betrayed. Gadget was made competent instead of bumbling. Dr. Claw's face was shown. The casting carousel for the lead role was remarkable. Kevin Kline, Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, Jim Carrey, Brendan Fraser, Tim Allen, Steve Carell, Tom Hanks, Michael Keaton, Mike Myers, Robin Williams. All considered, Broderick, fresh off tepidly received Godzilla, got the part. Lindsay Lohan turned down Penny to make The Parent Trap instead. Director David Kellogg packed the film with product placement. Yahoo, McDonald's, Coca-Cola. It felt more like a commercial than a movie. There's a petition urging Disney to release the original 110-minute cut. I wouldn't hold your breath. This is the one everyone remembers. Will Smith fresh off Men in Black. Director Barry Sonnenfeld reuniting with him. Warner Brothers spending somewhere between $170 and $180 million, though they publicly claimed $105 million. Marketing pushed total costs toward $300 million. Wild Wild West made $222 million worldwide. Sounds decent until you do the math. Warner Brothers probably saw around $100 million back from theatrical. They were staring at losses approaching $100 million. The film swept 5 Golden Raspberry Awards: Worst Picture, Worst Director, Worst Screenplay, Worst Screen Couple, Worst Original Song. Robert Conrad, star of the original TV series, personally showed up at the Razzies to express his disappointment. Here's the detail that haunts Will Smith to this day. He turned down Neo in The Matrix to make Wild Wild West. If Smith had taken The Matrix, Val Kilmer was reportedly lined up for Morpheus instead of Lawrence Fishburne. Smith has called it his greatest professional regret. He told audiences at a 2019 premiere he still asks himself why he didn't make The Matrix. The giant mechanical spider in the climax exists because producer John Peters had spent years trying to force one into Superman Lives, the abandoned Tim Burton and Nicolas Cage Superman project. When that fell apart, Peters channeled his spider obsession into Wild Wild West. Kevin Smith, who worked on the Superman Lives script, watched the finished film and said, "Good Lord, this is a piece of SHT." The budget spiraled because of set fires, reshoots after poor test screenings, and general excess. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers was starving the Iron Giant of marketing resources. Brad Bird's animated masterpiece made just $23 million, but became a beloved classic. Wild Wild West made 10 times as much and became a punchline. 1999 taught Hollywood a lesson it keeps forgetting. Audiences rewarded originality and punished recycled garbage. The Matrix came from unknown directors with a weird pitch. The Sixth Sense came from a filmmaker nobody had heard of. The Blair Witch Project was shot for $60,000. Meanwhile, 5 different TV adaptations bombed. Star power couldn't save Will Smith, or Robin Williams, or Kevin Costner, or Johnny Depp. The studios lost around $700 million, learning that quality matters more than budgets. I'd say they learned their lesson, but we both know they didn't.